wormholes, particle physics, extra dimensions. Are the wonders of so-called reality really what they appear to be? Or do we exist in an elaborate hologram? Is our universe the result of random activity or the result of intelligent design? If a creator was involved, can we discover him through our perception of divine order? This is Into the Multiverse with Josh Peck.
I mean, and that was one of the things when I was thinking what we could talk about is,
Yeah.
it's exactly what I've seen is that, what is it that gets us saved?
Mm-hmm.
Is it is our view on the timing of the rapture or when the seals start to open in Revelation or something like that? And now you layer on top of that what I think is the most difficult public policy issue that our government leaders have faced for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, so while I do, by the way, just as an aside, I do think it's a problem. However, I do think that there are people who have agendas that they're trying to push, whether it's do something to get Trump not reelected, or push their political agenda, their pet political project, or to bring in globalism, which I think you've seen a huge push for this in just the past week and a half.
Oh yeah, big time.
Which I think is not good. But I also see a situation where, the world is probably as set up as it's ever been to look for some great leader who will lead us out of this mess that seems to be irresolvable.
Yep.
And so I do. I'm a lawyer, and as I tell people, people pay me to argue for a living. And don't tell them, sometimes I might even do it for free because I kind of enjoy it. It's just my nature. But so sometimes I will challenge people.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit that I sort of drop into attorney cross-examination mode.
Sure.
But
to
challenge them.
Yeah, and I've read your post, and the way you do it, you're coming from logic and not emotion, and I think that's the difference. Because people who just want to fight and argue, they come at it from this emotional place, and I haven't seen that at all in you. You're actually asking very logical, reasonable questions, and you're challenging people to think a little bit deeper into the things that they're claiming they believe. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I actually wish that if we had anything at all, I wish we had more of that. If anything. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, and look, you can disagree with me on different aspects of eschatology. Believe me, I read a lot of different people. I listen to a lot of different people. And I can tell you, one of my concerns in the Christian community is there's a lot of different ideas out there about how this all works out. So I've encouraged people to be a little bit humble. I'd love to sit down and have a big symposium type, dialogue back and forth with people. Not necessarily a debate, but just a long discussion.
Yeah.
On some of the issues, because
that would be awesome.
I think on the major points, I think we agree. A lot of us agree on 95% that are in the futurist premillennial camp. Mm-hmm. And as you recall, that was one of the things we talked about at that conference, World Turned Upside Down 5 years ago. We had some panels on that. But to get back to the point I was trying to make earlier, and before I went down the rabbit trail, my wife says I'm always going, and I've always say when I speak at a conference, if you see a lady in the back waving her hands in the air, it's not somebody having an emotional reaction to I talk. It's just, that's my wife telling me to bring it in for a landing. And that I've made my point. So it's been hard the last few Sundays because, we're not meeting as a church, we're filming things at church, but there's nobody there.
Oh yeah. My wife has to do the same for me. Cause the good thing about my audience is they have me as a host, so they're used to rabbit trails.
So anyway, but what I see, to get back to the point again, is that there's a tendency to add things to the faith. You to be a good Christian, you have to think this way about this particular issue. You have to think this way about Bill Gates, or you have to think this way about that this virus thing is a hoax. Mm-hmm. So I just try to bring a little bit of logic to it. And look, people raise good questions.
Yeah.
Are they counting the deaths the right way? Are they overcounting the deaths? I would ask the question, are they undercounting the deaths? I know that, for example, in New York City, and I read a lot of different newspapers. I read, I read a lot of local papers. I use Google Translate to read foreign papers. And I know while there is this narrative out there that it's just the flu or the seasonal flu is worse. By the way, one of the big proponents of that was Dr. Drew Pinsky, who came out and he mocked people who said that this was a problem. Mm-hmm. And he's now come out and apologized and taken down the videos where he said that it wasn't a problem. Mm-hmm. And he's threatening to sue people for copyright infringement if they put up the videos of showing him as to what he said a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So, look, it's a very difficult issue, and things are going to change. Models are going to change, all of this thing. But what happens is if you don't, the tendency is if you don't have the same view that I do, then you're not as good a Christian. And so I see a lot, I guess I would call it a lot of spiking the ball or virtue signaling that, I'm a better Christian than you because, well, I eat healthy and I understand how the immune system works. And so that's fine. If you're healthy, praise the Lord for that, but don't slam other people that aren't. We live in a fallen world. And the last time I checked, the death rate for humans from all causes is 100%. Yeah. So, the Lord will come for us in one way or the other at some point. And if the Lord doesn't come back for 50 years, most of the people having this conversation today won't be around anyway.
Yep.
So I just think that we need to be careful not to add to the faith or what it means to be a good Christian. I think people should also look at little nuances in the facts. For example, I have a friend who sells truck trailers. I saw him the other day. I said, how's business? His business is really pretty good. I said, really, in this economy? And he goes, well, we're selling and leasing a lot of refrigerated truck units, trailers. Mm-hmm. I said, to who? Hospitals. Mm. Now, look, whether some of these hospitals will need them or not, I can assure you that the pictures that I've seen and the things I've seen coming out of New York, where they have 6, 8, 10, 12 refrigerated tractor trailer units in their parking lot, especially when the hospital is largely shut down. Mm-hmm. They've stopped elective procedures. They're laying off doctors and nurses. It's going to cause a huge financial crisis for these institutions because they're focused on what they believe is going to be the acute care needs of COVID-19 patients. And so they're sort of adapting to that. So they're not storing vegetables in these refrigerated units. And there's pictures out there. There's stacks of bodies.
Yeah. And
so my question always is, yeah, I know you're looking at the numbers and everything. And I'm not even really looking at mortality rate. I'm looking at the impact on the acute care aspect of hospitals. I don't remember anybody saying that the hospitals were going to be overwhelmed. The concern always was, do we have enough ventilators? Do we have enough ICU beds? Because when the 15 or 20% of people get really sick with this thing, they require a lot of care. And so that's where they thought they were going to get overwhelmed, not that it was going to fill up the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. It's in that one specified need. Ventilators, hospitals, might need 2 or 3 of them in general use, but with something like this, that can overwhelm the hospital in that capacity. Just respirators, they don't have enough of that specific thing.
There's also the fact that they're developing some treatment protocols for that, and then maybe they're finding that ventilators really don't help that much. Mm-hmm. That it's more. I've seen some pretty good reports and science and papers even that giving them oxygen is more important. In fact, I use a CPAP machine, and because I just have a tendency to just stop breathing. Don't really snore that much, never have, but I stop breathing 80 times or 100 times an hour, and which is not good. and so now so I got a notice from my CPAP supplier yesterday that there's a tremendous demand for CPAP machines now. And so what they're doing is they're sort of using the CPAP machine, which for a continuous pressure CPAP, continuous pressure, I think, or it forces air into your nose or mouth, or both, so you breathe all the time. And what they're doing is they're sort of using that to force higher oxygenated, percentage of oxygen. They're sort of marrying the two together, and so now they're running in a shortage of CPAP machines. So so there's what I see as a real adaptability to people to deal with a problem that, if it is in fact a novel virus, which it appears to be, that means it's one they really not have had to deal with before. And so, people over the world are learning, and maybe the chloroquine and Z-Pak treatment will work in a lot of cases. And as a result, we have less deaths. So, so that's good. Maybe social distancing works. That's caused the rates to slow down in many places. And so I'm glad for that. But I think it's a problem. I'm just telling you. So here's the example in New York. Maybe they're undercounting. Before this started in New York City, they would have 20 to 25 people every day who would die in home. Hey, we got somebody who died here at home. Since this started breaking out in New York, the numbers are 10 times that amount every day. And the problem now is that the medical examiners are so overwhelmed that it's taking them over 24 hours in most cases to even get to the body. So I'm just saying this is unprecedented. There was a picture in the New York Times yesterday of the underground parking garage of a large funeral home mortuary in Barcelona, Spain. Every parking spot was lined with, there were about 6 coffins per. Now, I guess there were 4 to 6 coffins per parking space in the entire parking garage. And in the back, there were racks where they had coffins, all filled with dead people from the coronavirus in one city in one mortuary.
Wow.
And so I'm saying is I don't see the regular flu doing that.
Yeah.
So somebody tweeted, I think I'll give Joel Richardson credit. His tweet a few weeks ago was, everybody says, well, I'm just going to trust the Lord, or you're panicked and you're fearful. And he made a very good tweet. Carelessness is not faith, and preparation and common sense is not panic.
That's awesome.
And so I thought it was an awesome response. So I understand everybody's desire, especially since a lot of people have a lot more time on their hands now, to try to figure out what's happening. Is it a bioweapon? I think there's some good evidence for that. Was it intentional? Was it unintentional? Did it get out and then they tried to use it? Now the other concern I have, is that people are trying to develop tracking technologies. And I used a video from a company the last couple of weeks, a company named Tektronix, in my update, where they took the cell phones on one beach because of their access to this information and data. And they tracked the people from that beach in Fort Lauderdale from spring break and they did a heat map and showed where they had gone all over the world or all over the country. They did the same thing. They tracked about 1.5 million cell phones from the New York City area and show how they completely there was a heat map all the way down to Florida as they had fled New York after the shutdown. Everybody said stay home. a lot of people took off for other places. I'm concerned about that, and I know there's a lot of videos out there about ID20, Mark of the Beast, and all of this stuff, and I'm concerned about that too. But I don't know that the beast is here. At least nobody's identified who the beast is. And I think the Mark of the Beast sort of requires the beast. We know that there will be all sort of technology developments that will assist in that. I still think worship of the beast, loyalty to the beast is the big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
But so everybody's upset about ID 2020. And I think what ID 2020 started as and what it's maybe morphed into are maybe a little bit different. But everybody's like, oh, they're going to come and track us. And it's like, wait a minute, they're already tracking you, you have conversations with Christina. You might say something about, should we go to Best Buy and get a new computer screen for our computer? And all of a sudden your Facebook feed is filled with ads for computer screens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Even just the other day, I was watching this funny video about how this guy went on a news show and he was trying to say that birds aren't real, just some silly thing. But I watched that, and I watched it on a different account than what my phone is logged into. Well, right after that, on Facebook, I started getting all these ads for birds aren't real and the whole birds aren't real movement. And it was on a total
movement for that.
Yeah, I think the guy that made it up is just trolling everybody, but there are a few people that actually believe in that.
Well, it's funny. I used to joke with my wife about that. It was like, do birds disappear at night? Because do you really ever see the bird at night?
Yeah. That's when the government is plugging them in and charging them for the next day.
And that's where one of those ones was. She goes, you can never say that in public, because people will think you're crazy. So I just see it's a very interesting phenomenon. And I know people are stressed, now, we used, I was traveling a lot on the road, about 225 nights a year back around 9/11. And, and they started pulling a couple people out to ask them questions. Then they started the long lines to get through security and that Kabuki theater there where they're wanting the grandmother and other groups of people that you would think they might be interested in after 9/11. They're just sort of waved on through. They don't even have to go through the detectors, it seems. So, and now, now you're coming and you go to the grocery store and there's a line to get into the grocery store because they only let 150 people or whatever it is in at the time. And, there's, I hear now, a friend told me today that there's a huge litter problem now. People are just throwing it with wipes, handy wipes, and used masks, or they're finding all over the place because people just tossing them out the window of their car. So it is such a weird world. I went to my office a week ago, Monday, work in a huge office building. Thousands of people work there, 6-story parking garage adjacent to it. And one of the people in my office said that the security people told her that maybe 80 to 100 people a day are coming in this 40-story office building.
Wow.
It's I drive a couple floors of the parking garage and I see maybe a dozen cars. And it's like, it's so weird. It is like the zombie apocalypse out there. You drive by these giant malls and there's no cars anywhere in the vicinity. Busy restaurants are empty. It's just, and so I think, it's going to take a while to dig out of this. In the meantime, there are people that have agendas that are not good people, and they're going to try to force those agendas down everybody's throats. So that's more what I'm looking at is sort of the economic thing and what people will make of it. I think you can hold the position that the coronavirus was a big problem and that bad people will take advantage of it. I think that's okay position to have. I don't think you have to say that the whole thing was fake or made up, but certainly we see people rush in with a lot of different schemes on vaccines and tracking people and that sort of thing. But a lot of that artificial intelligence infrastructure is already there. So it was interesting what your guy said about the 5G towers. You know, the his concern also was on the tracking aspect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I agree with that. I mean, but you know, I know that if I take my phone in my pocket, and I'm almost convinced that even if I don't, they're going to pretty much know what I'm doing anyway if they really want to dig into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people say, well, that there's good things that come for that. I mean, if you want to find a criminal or a child who's been abducted or something like that, that tracking stuff will make all of that much easier. So there's a good idea aspect to it, but some bad person will eventually make really bad use of it, whatever that ends up being. So it's a very difficult time to be alive. I will say that it's very stressful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're totally right. It is about like how these new developments can be abused, and then when a crisis does happen, how people will use that crisis, whether the crisis is real or fake. And I believe, I think that this is real. I don't think that this was just some big manufactured thing, because I don't think the governments of the world are coherent enough to be able to pull something like that off. But that aside,
well, I've often said that I believe that there is a group cabal or whatever of really bad people that want to take over everything in the world and all of that. We've known that since the very beginning.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I also know that depending on which theory you adopt, they've been at it for hundreds of years. And so the other conclusion I come to is they are human beings, and they're not very good at it because they haven't taken everything over yet.
Good point.
At some point, God will say, okay, now's the time. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to let everything go and sort of let the evil one have his way for a season. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to come back, I'm going to destroy it and set up my kingdom. So, as I said, as stressful as it is, we know that it works out very well. And even though we're under lockdown, and I can't watch sport. This is the weekend of the Masters. I love golf. Mm-hmm. And I don't get to watch the Masters on my big screen, high definition TV. But, my wife is making me these incredibly delicious meals. And so in perspective, it's hard for me to say that I'm suffering. Now, right. Listen, my economic situation is probably much different than others just because of my age and where we are in our life. But it's, I understand that it's stressful. I mean, listen, I do a lot of, because of the banks I work with, I do some bankruptcy related work. Mm-hmm. This is really bad out there. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that if we open things back up tomorrow that it would go. I have a friend in Sweden who's been communicating with me. I said, well, Sweden has taken a laissez-faire approach to this. They haven't shut down restaurants. They told people that, maybe separate a little bit more. They may have limited groups to a couple hundred, 250 or 500. Sort of keep your distance. But so I said, well, how's it going? He said, well, now the people are coming out and saying they expect thousands of deaths because they took this approach. And he said small businesses are failing like crazy here, even though everything's pretty much open. So the conclusion you can draw from that is, I think that supports my thesis that the China shutdown unleashed a contagion across the world that's rippling across the world. And then the oil price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia that's collapsed our oil industry, at least the shale aspect, which had made us energy independent. And who knows whether that will come back. So, I think I'm trying to think how to say this. I'm a trial lawyer. Sometimes I tell young lawyers, the last person sometimes you need to believe is your client. Mm-hmm. because everybody has a tendency to filter things through their preconceived notions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you have to be careful when you're looking at evidence that you're sort of looking at it from a 50,000-foot level
Mm-hmm.
and not just picking and choosing things that support your conclusion. I think that's where you get into it's where lawyers get into trouble. And you also need to remember that if somebody disagrees with you, it doesn't mean that they're stupid
Mm-hmm.
or that they don't have the insight that you have. It just may be that they're evaluating evidence that you refuse to consider.
Yep.
Because it doesn't fit your narrative. So, this happens with, the way we look at some of the things in the Bible and reach conclusions about eschatology too.
Mm-hmm.
The criticism I launch here is it's stuff I'm guilty of myself that
we're all human. Yeah, I've done
that
it
I have
myself.
to wrestle with. And, but I've often said in the prophecy community, at least at this point, I think things will unfold very quickly when it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that they are. We would not have talked about this 3 months ago.
That's right.
And we would talk about, I hear that they think they're having maybe an epidemic in China, in a province in China. And now all of a sudden the whole world is involved.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere is on lockdown. And I saw a video of a Uganda police, I think the chief of police of Uganda used very colorful language about staying home, you stupid blank, 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 beep, beep people. And so there's Uganda that is on lockdown. India, the Arab countries, Israel. I mean, Israel was like total curfew
Mm-hmm.
yesterday for 24 hours. Interestingly enough, on Passover,
Yeah.
they're locked in their homes again. So I think this is a very prophetically significant time. It could be that things will unfold very quickly from here. I do not think that the world will be the same.
Amen. Yeah.
I'm 66. I don't know that it'll resolve in my lifetime, Josh.
Yeah, I hear you. And so, given all that, just kind of in conclusion here, because I believe that as well. I think that we've hit a point where things aren't going to go back to normal, at least not anytime soon. So given that, what we've talked a lot about what Christians should not do, which they need that. But what should, so during this time where troubling times Christians are supposed to shine, what kinds of things can Christians do now to be most effective for God's purposes, for the purposes of Jesus that he's laid out in Scripture? What should Christians be doing right now to kind of help the world through this?
Well, I think you can help people locally within your church or community. We mentioned to somebody around us that we had some friends. He was unemployed. They had a business. They couldn't do their business. And all of a sudden, an envelope shows up on the porch. Please give this to the couple you talked about, with money in it. And so that nobody asked them to give that. Nobody said that. So I think we need to be sensitive to that. I was able to buy toilet paper. Mm-hmm. We knew of another family, and my wife just said, take the toilet paper over to them. 45 rolls, by the way. I felt like I was afraid I was going to get hijacked on the road, in my little Prius. Somebody would see, the giant rolls of toilet paper sitting on the seat next to me. But, it's funny because I took it over to them, and then they said, boy, we're so grateful. They have a lot of kids and everything, big household. They said we were down to 2 rolls and we didn't know what we were going to do.
Wow.
It's just little things like that. I think, also look for opportunities to share people because, people may ask questions about what's going on. I mean, I can remember through a crisis a number of years ago, we had a meeting and some things were happening, and one of my, conflicts, the Arab Springs going on and everything, and one of the attorneys in my firm at the time walked in my office and said, is this the end of the world? Now, that was interesting. That person went to a church that really didn't teach anything on eschatology. And I said, initially, you know my position on these things. Are you sure you really want to be asking me that question? But I think we need to give people that, that there is a difficult time coming on the earth. Jesus told us that time would be a time of with perplexity, men's hearts failing them for fear of the things that were coming on the earth. And this may just be a mild foretaste of it. So, that eschatology thing really works as an evangelistic tool to kind of tell people that, listen, it will be difficult, but for the faithful of God and for the faithful remnant of God, God will provide, and things will work out okay for us. And the other thing, too, that I think that I think there are Christians being persecuted all over the world. And I think of those guys on the beach, in the orange jumpsuits that were soon to be beheaded. Yeah. And a lot of them were Egyptian Coptic Christians, and they were martyred. And immediately I saw some people say, oh, well, they were Coptics, and Coptics have this theological problem. But the story was that the words off the lips of every one of them was Jesus, as they were beheaded. And so, listen, there's a parable that Jesus talked about. The people come in at the last minute and do just a little bit of work, and they get a full day's wages too. I think that applies there. And so the thing that, when I saw that, what I saw was that God was glorified in their suffering. And so I think that we also need to pray that, God would use us not to make our life better, but whatever circumstances we're in, that we would act in a way that glorifies Him.
Amen. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And thank you again for taking the time to join me for this interview. One last time, if people want to find you online or check out your church or anything like that, where can people go?
Yeah. Our website is FB Chapel, for Fellowship Bible Chapel, fbchapel.com. And we do stream all of our teachings. Right now we're doing a Sunday morning sermon, My Prophecy Update, Tuesday night Bible study. We intend to be adding some more in the future, and you can find those on our YouTube channel. Well, Facebook Chapel, Fellowship Bible Chapel on Facebook. We've live streamed. We've also started live streaming on YouTube. We're also on Vimeo. Fellowship Bible Chapel or My Name John Haller on YouTube will get you to the things that we put up.
Excellent. Well, John Haller, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and let's not wait another 5 years before the next time.
That's right. That'd be great. God bless.
God bless you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourself for one of the most shocking special offers in Skywatch TV history. We proudly announce the Shadowland Ultimate Collection. For your $35 donation during this very limited time offer, you'll receive the groundbreaking new book by Dr. Thomas Horn, Shadowland, that exposes the deep state actors at war with Christianity, Donald Trump, and America's destiny. The best-selling book by Pentagon analyst Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, Progressive Evil: How Radicals Are Redefining America's Rights, Making Her Globally Irrelevant for the End Times. Author Carl Gallup's brand new book, Masquerade, that explains the supernatural forces operating behind current global events. But this critical 3-volume collection also includes the original 5-part Skywatch Television Shadowland Investigative Series on DVD, absolutely free. Moreover, this incredible series contains the never-before-released on DVD, world-exclusive behind-the-scenes interview regarding perhaps the biggest scandal and cover-up in U.S. history. So hot, we're unable to discuss the specific contents on network television involving a 2-hour investigative interview with new forensic information connected to the Robert Mueller report that may soon send shockwaves through Washington, D.C. and around the world. But we're just getting started. The Shadowland Ultimate Collection also includes the brand new, never-before-released audio series by Dr. Thomas Horn himself, The Hidden Occultism of Epstein's Orgy Island. What demonic atrocities were going on at Epstein Island, and who were the high-powered individuals involved in some of the darkest occultic activities the world has ever witnessed. The contents of this mind-boggling 3-part exclusive audio series are far too sensitive for network broadcasting and are directly from the private vault of Dr. Thomas Horn, available nowhere else. But we're still not done. You'll also receive the Best of Defender Publishing ebook collection on data disc, featuring 70 of the most information-packed, best-selling books in Defender history. These full-length works are in popular ebook formats, so you can read them on EPUB, PDF, Kindle, and other handheld electronic devices. Give this collection as the ultimate gift to somebody you know, or take them with you wherever you go. Valued at over $700 all by itself. This unprecedented collection sold separately holds a retail value of over $800. Yours now for only $35 plus shipping and handling. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime Skywatch TV exclusive offer, the Shadowland Ultimate Collection, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order online or call 1-844-750-4985.